Welcome in to the Mile High Hoops podcast. I am Jake Shapiro, and today is a very fun day, Tuesday, January 7th, because we in the Mile High City are going to see the Boston Celtics, the reigning champions, come to town to face the Denver Nuggets. And I have been waiting for this game for months. I've had this game circled since it was announced on the NBA's calendar when it came out in the summer. And it should be a very telling game, right? I mean, it is one of the best teams in the league in the Celtics against a team in the Nuggets who we're still trying to figure out what they are exactly. But if you look at the records of these two teams, Nuggets at 20-14, Celtics at 26-10, not that much different. And the Celtics, as of late, have had some struggles. And that they've had the ups and downs of the dog days of the season. Last night, or not last night, but Sunday night was a very telling game for the Celtics because they go out to Oklahoma City and face a Thunder team who had been 15-1 in games in which Isaiah Hartenstein had played. And they couldn't score more than 27 points against the Thunder in the entire second half. They lose 105-92. And of course, that Thunder stat comes without Chet Holmgren. So the Thunder on Sunday announced themselves as probably the cream of the crop in the NBA. It's either them or the Cavs. So the Celtics, while they're the reigning champions, and I think a lot of people are going to struggle to pick against them come playoff time, you could make an argument that right now they're a little bit behind the eight ball. And that's because they've had some losses recently. They lost to Orlando. They lost to Philadelphia on Christmas. A lot of people watched that game. They lost to Indiana. They lost to Chicago. They lost to Memphis last month. So that's where their run of losses is coming from. And it started with a loss in a tight game to Cleveland, who, again, we're all thinking might be the special team. Cleveland, by the way, is on a 72-win pace right now. They're just unbelievable. But the Celtics knew going into this year that this trip to start January was going to be pivotal. At Minnesota, at Houston, at Oklahoma City, and at Denver. And it only has gotten tougher as the season has progressed because Houston has turned into a very, very good team. Boston goes into Minnesota, wins a tight game. Boston goes into Houston, smokes them, and then I talked about that Thunder result. So they can come away from this road trip against four of the best teams in the West after tonight, either 3-1 or 2-2. Pretty big difference there, right? So just looking at that from a Celtics perspective. As well, from the Celtics perspective, they might be without Derek White tonight, who's questionable with an illness. They're starting two-guard, Colorado kid. Fantastic do-it-all guard. And then another thing to consider from the Celtics perspective. They have lost 3 games in a row to the Nuggets. And last year, those games, the Nuggets-Celtics games, were tight and awesome. The Nuggets won 102-100 in Boston, and then they defended home court with a 6-point win in March. Those were 2 of the best NBA games I watched last year. And then you go back to New Year's Day, January 2023, the Nuggets won that game. And these, I feel like, the Nuggets and Celtics, over the last 2.5 seasons, so not just this season, right? If you extend it over 2.5 seasons, the Nuggets and Celtics have been the best 2 teams in the NBA, both record-wise, the games they win, the players on their team. And it's almost a shame, right, that the Heat upset the Celtics and we didn't get the Nuggets-Celtics matchup in the finals. And then it's a shame that the Nuggets couldn't get it done last year against Minnesota because I think they might get through Dallas. So we've been teased with this matchup for 2 years of a potential finals matchup. And sometimes how this thing goes is, hey, year 3, neither team, we're going, we like some other teams in the West. We like some other teams in the East. The way the world works, I would not be surprised if both these teams end up in the finals because this is the year we're going, this probably isn't a finals preview, right? So I'm watching for a lot tonight, just in case. because you never know what's going to happen down the line. Though I don't expect the Nuggets to make the finals this year. That's not where I'm at personally right now. But again, the way the world works, strange things happen. Guys get hurt. Not wishing it upon anyone. Just saying, we've seen the door open for teams in the past because guys got hurt. And if you're healthy at the right time, good things can happen for you, as did the Mavericks last year, right? So looking at this from the Nuggets perspective, right, which is this podcast. Nuggets just split with San Antonio. They went on that little run of games against Detroit, Utah, Atlanta. Got fat and happy against those bad teams. And that comes off a stretch where they beat Hawks, Clippers, Kings, Pelicans, Suns, right? Those were the first times they've really stacked wins all season. The Nuggets have been struggling to stack wins in a row. So can they stack wins in a row against Wemby and then the Celtics and then potentially the Clippers, who they've struggled against? And then the Nets are here on Friday as well. That's a team that's not very good. And looking forward on the schedule, Nuggets spend the weekend in Dallas, who likely will be without Kyrie and Luka. And the Mavericks are 0-8 since acquiring Kyrie in games without Kyrie and Luka. So this is an opportunity to go from 20-14 to 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 14, hosting Houston, who we all think is a very good team now. And it hinges on this Celtics game tonight. And what I think this specific game, the matchup it comes down to is, how do the Celtics guard Nikola Jokic, right? They've deployed Al Horford on him in the past. I believe Kristaps was hurt for one of the matchups last year. Kristaps and him went head-to-head in Boston. That was fun. The Celtics have a lot of length with Tatum and Brown, right? When your two best players are wings, you get a lot of length. Without Derek, that could be a struggle. Though, what the Celtics have done this season, and I watch a lot of basketball, is Drew Holiday has guarded a lot of bigs, including Joel Embiid. I would not be surprised if Drew Holiday was actually Nikola Jokic's primary defender at points throughout this game, with Kristaps Porzingis or Al Horford being the help. And then, you've got a really good, solid Celtics player, Kata, coming off the bench, 7-footer. And the other night, I was watching the Celtics game, and Porzingis and Kata played together at points. Do the Celtics go big against the Nuggets? Unfortunately for the Nuggets, because Aaron Gordon is hurt, they can't counter and punish teams that go big by going big themselves, right? Michael Porter Jr. is going to play the 4. And then you might get like Peyton Watson, who's 6'8" off the bench. Maybe you'll get, some Dario Saric minutes tonight, but it's nothing that the Nuggets have been using realistically the last few weeks. Zeke Naji, that's a guy who could play in this matchup. But what do the Nuggets do tonight, right? And how do the Celtics defend it? Will Drew Holiday just be sitting off Russell Westbrook? And I think a large reason that the Nuggets lost against the Spurs last Friday was because they tried to close with Russell Westbrook off ball, and the spacing is just atrocious. Joe Mazzulla, I think, is one of the better coaches in the league already. So that's what I'm looking for, how these two teams match up, because it'll tell us a lot about how they're going to be defended come stretch time, come playoff time, because these two teams are serious about each other. Unfortunately, because KCP is gone, the Nuggets don't really have anyone to guard Jaylen Brown. The Nuggets do have Aaron Gordon to put on Jason Tate. Well, they don't tonight. So, we're going to see the Booth boys. Calvin Booth said when he drafted that he envisioned Peyton Watson and Christian Brown guarding Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. We're going to see it tonight because the Nuggets have no other options. I'm fascinated to see how Peyton lives up to the challenge because in my mind, besides Jamal Murray being a true all-star, which he's rising to that level lately, the number one thing that can raise the Nuggets ceiling this season is if Peyton Watson takes a giant step forward and becomes like the starting 2 guard, perhaps. that defense, that versatility, that length. I think he's a better shooter than Christian, and his athleticism is on par. If Peyton is able to guard Jason Tatum tonight, coming off the game he just had against the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama, oh boy, is Thursday's podcast, the Mile High Hoops podcast, going to be singing the praises of Peyton Watson. Another thing about this matchup, the Nuggets shoot the fewest threes in the league by far. The Celtics shoot the most threes. So the Nuggets have to defend the perimeter tonight. They probably have to get a bad shooting game from the Celtics, which they've had a poor shooting slump over the last couple weeks. Nuggets have to win the rebounding battle tonight. That's another thing that they've struggled with recently. And again, the Celtics have a lot more size than the Nuggets. And the thing that made the Nuggets so good when they won the title is they had a lot of size. So those are the things I'll be looking forward to tonight. And then can Jamal Murray get off against Drew Holiday or Jaylen Brown, whoever's going to be guarding him, two elite defenders? And that could be something meaningful. As always with these games, Michael Porter Jr. is kind of the swing piece, and we saw that in the Lakers series last year. When Michael Porter Jr. is able to elevate his game to another level, it just puts the Nuggets in another tier. So those are the matchups and what I'm kind of thinking about as we go into the Nuggets-Celtics game tonight. Nuggets also play the Clippers before I talk to you next. But one thing I did want to talk to you from a bigger picture is that Bradley Beal put the Nuggets on his no-trade list that he would accept a trade to. All you really need to know is that a trade to the Nuggets with Bradley Beal is needlessly complex, would require them trading at least Michael Porter Jr., and then Zeke Naji and some other pieces as well. And Bradley Beal is a negative contract player by far. He is not the 30-point per game scorer he was in Washington. He's 31 years old. He's smaller than MPJ, shoots worse than MPJ, does offer some really great ball creation skills, is a solid perimeter defender, and has adapted to that role decently in Phoenix. But in terms of third fiddle, MPJ has proven to be a better third fiddle than Bradley Beal. It's just another trade that people might throw out because of the name and say the Nuggets could trade MPJ for this guy. But in reality, it does not make the Nuggets better. There is not a home run trade to make with MPJ where the Nuggets get better. But I do think what you can see about the Bradley Beal trade possibility is that the Suns are done, right? The Suns thing is blowing up. It's funny that they won last night with Beal and Nurkic coming off the bench, but this is another contender in the West that I thought might have some battles with the Nuggets for years, and they fired their coach after the last two off seasons. Nuggets really killed that window, per se, when they got Monty Williams fired for that 6-game series loss en route to a title. And I thought we were going to get a Devin Booker, Jamal Murray career battle of who's better in the West. And we're not probably going to get that because the Suns are going to need to refresh the page here badly. And we see new owner syndrome with Matt Ishbia. And, at times, people complain about the Cronkies or, whatever. And there's certainly complaints to be had with KSE, but it does make you fortunate that there's not a new owner in Denver because we see new owner syndrome play out in the NBA a lot. And it looks like what just happened in Phoenix, and they look like they are going to be in a mess for the next maybe decade. And all the while, they've got the best player they've ever had, besides maybe Steve Nash, in Devin Booker, who is like a son, because Kevin Durant obviously has played there, Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley. But in terms of who you think of as a true blue son, franchise best player, Alex English versus Carmelo Anthony in Denver, right? Or Alex English versus Allen Iverson in Denver, right? So that kind of goes away. But one thing to look out for with the Bradley Beal thing is the Nuggets are now being considered by some of the better players in the NBA as a destination to go to chase rings. And this was never happening before Nikola Jokic. So Joker has really raised the profile of the Nuggets to the level where teams want, or players want to join the Nuggets to ring chase. We've seen this with Russell Westbrook. So it's something to keep in mind with Bradley Beal specifically, because when that contract does finally get eaten by a team and he signs a minimum contract, the Nuggets are going to be a possible destination. And, Bradley Beal is not the player he once was, but he can still play. And Bradley Beal for $1 million versus $50 million is a completely different proposition. It's not going to happen this year because the collective bargaining agreement wouldn't allow it, but it's something to keep in mind in the future that the Nuggets might have an opportunity with Bradley Beal later on to pick up a player that could behoove their bench, and they need to keep all of these things in mind. So I'm just kind of watching the way the tea leaves go in the NBA, and it's kind of interesting to see the Nuggets have been raised that profile. Also, shout out Joker, player of the week. Jason Tatum, by the way, player of the week. So we're seeing the 2 players of the week from each conference play again tonight. Nikola Jokic is averaging an entire Russell Westbrook more than Jason Tatum over the last week. He is ridiculous. Best player in the world by far. Cannot wait to see him play tonight. And we will talk about it more on Thursday after the Nuggets play the Celtics and the Clippers. A battle of the seas coming into the Mile High City. I'm Jake Shapiro. This is the Mile High Hoops podcast. Make sure you subscribe to everything on Denver Sports. Like and subscribe. We've got all this awesome Denver Broncos content coming up before their matchup in Buffalo against the Bills in NFL's Wild Card Weekend. I am contributing heavily over there right now because it's all hands on deck when the Denver Broncos are in the playoffs. Thank you for watching, listening, or wherever you do it, and I will talk to you later.